Is it on?
I remember when the Boulders lived there, you know.
It's on now, so it's.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah, so you tell whatever.
Have to watch out what I'm saying, huh?
Oh yeah, we thought we would find out today from you just some particulars. We wanted to know where you were born
Yeah,
and growing up along the boulevard and the
Yeah.
school and Navy Island.
oh yeah.
So where do you want to start?
Oh, I know quite a bit about that. Well,
You can stay and listen, Mario.
Oh, that's all right.
you gonna go, Mario?
Yeah, I'll
Have
do
a cup of coffee or?
No, that's all right. You're busy. I'll come
Okay.
back.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, come again.
I'll bring the boss next time.
Good.
We'll be looking for you. Or
Okay.
asking about you now in the hospital. Going to Welland?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll be just a one day anyway.
Huh.
Okay, we'll see you.
You got a knee.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I was born in Stanford Township, the old Howie place, where what do you call it now? What do you call that? A big mall.
Niagara Square.
Huh?
Niagara Square?
The Niagara Square. That was a farm. Where the Niagara Square is now. That was the farm that we lived. That's where I was born, raised till I was 7 years old. Then we moved up the river to the Wright place. And my dad and Uncle Louis rented that. And it was a big farm. It was 350 acres. And Uncle Louis worked the one half of it. My dad worked the other, and they worked together. And the Snyders, Joe Snyder family lived in that house. And Uncle Louis had the barn. And then that's the way they worked it out. Then they made hay together, and made wood, raised cattle, horses, and then they used to take some of the cattle over to Navy Island for pasture, young stock and that.
How'd they get them over there?
Well, Dick Snyder had a motorboat. One of them old fellows with a one-cylinder engine, and
Brave souls.
they borrowed a scow, and it was at the time when the hydro was just starting. There was no hydro or anything up there then, no telephones or anything, and but they had a scow, and it was a small one. Well, it would probably hold an automobile nicely, something like that. Well, they took the thrashing machine over there with it, the engine. They have to take it separate. The engine, the steam engine, they take that over on there. Then they'd have to come back and get the grain separator. And one year they went over there twice to thrash. The farmer lived over there, and he had a family. Well, it was 10 in the family, and he, the boy was just not too much older than I. He was about 2 years older than I, young George, and the father, apparently he wasn't, as far as I can remember, he wasn't a very reliable fellow. He was gone all the time. He'd leave his wife and the whole family to do the work and take care of things. But they had lots of chickens and they had cows and all that they could live on that stuff. When they couldn't get over to get groceries of any kind, well, they was all right that way. And then they'd have to come over and they'd come to the Canadian shore most of the time because that is the closest with a rowboat. And she'd have a couple of the kids with them, young George. As far as I know, they never went to school. And after we moved away from there, sometime after that, they went to the States. They moved to Niagara Falls, New York, and I never heard of them for years until somebody told me that young George worked in a saloon in Les Salles, and I went to see him. Sure enough, while we talked together, he remembered all the things that we used to do. And he said his mother was living in North Tonawanda at that time yet. And I had intentions of going to see her, but never got to see her. I never heard any more about any of them after that. Of course, I did know the younger ones. I can't remember them. And then they had two of them drowned while they were there. One little girl fell off the dock and drowned. She was 5 years old. And they brought her over to Canadian Shore. And my dad made a little casket for her. And they took her to Chippewa. And she was buried at the English church there. And the other one, I think, I forget I was a boy or a girl. I think it was a girl too. They never did find it. Got out into probably went over the falls, see. But there was a lot of interesting things about that place. It was just before he went there, well, there was a fellow by the name of McGlashan. He had a lease on it. He planted a lot of. He must have been a rich man because he had to hire scows and boats and everything to go over, and they planted grapes and peaches and pears. There's a huge pear orchard there, and even apples, and all those things. And they grew good there. That is awful good ground. They could grow peaches there, and there was these English walnut trees there. There was a lot of things that came off of that island, and but it was a disadvantage. You always had to have a boat to get the stuff. So then another thing was the old, from the time of the 1901, was it? When they, what they call that, the big, they built a hotel there.
Oh, yes.
And they built a merry-go-round with all the animals on it. And that was before my time, but the stuff was still there. The hotel got burnt. I don't remember the hotel being there before it got burnt, just the remnants of it. And the same way with the merry-go-round. But we used to, Jim and I and the Boulder kids, we'd go over there, and Gib Snyder and Hazel, and we'd have a whale of a time. We'd ride those horses, lions and stuff, you know. Pretend.
Oh, no. They were still there? They
Huh?
were still there. The horses and the animals were still
Everybody
there?
stole the stuff from there. You see, the
Oh,
poachers would come from
yeah.
Niagara Falls, New York, and all over,
But they were long enough to
and
run
steal
the
that
business
stuff.
Yeah.
again.
Just like they did at Crystal Beach. They wanted all those things, you know.
Oh.
And there was some beautiful, it was a beautiful merry-go-round. But most of it was all shattered, but the platform was there yet. Part of it was fastened on. Some had been already stolen, I guess, at the time when we went there. It was a mess then already. But then they had a nice dock there, and they had a boat. They used to take passenger boat. They'd have big outings there like they did at Crystal Beach. And from Buffalo and on. And they had a nice big dock there, and they had another dock on this side, Slater's dock,
Oh, yes.
and that's where the boat would land there. But I don't remember that, but that's how it was. I think I got some literature on it since. But anyway, that were the kind of things that went on there. And then Jim and I used to roll over there. Well, we went there in 1914, and that had to be around 1915 or 16 that I used to row over there. So I wasn't very old. And I'd row the boat. Jim couldn't row yet. I mean, not on the river. He'd row at a creek.
Imagine.
You
And
only
I'd
would have
row
been
over
9
there,
or 10.
And I know we got caught in a storm a couple of times. You know, wind would come up, and our folks would be worried about us because, well, you'd look out there and you wouldn't hardly see the boat sometimes. You know, the waves would get so high. But we had pretty good judgment what to do. We'd row upstream, you know, before we start to cross, and then you'd have to keep at a 45-degree angle just to hold your place in the current, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'd drift down. So we'd land up about by McCrady's place, and then drift down to the Boyer's Creek and go in under the bridge there. Kept the boat in there.
What was that?
I was just wondering where their house was from there. Do you know where?
Oh, now, yes, we were wondering where your house was.
Huh?
When you lived on the boulevard, where your house was.
Oh, it's where newspaper man.
Leslie.
Leslie?
Leslie. Leslie.
Yeah. Bruce.
Bruce Leslie.
Bruce Leslie lives
Yeah.
there now.
Yeah, the old original.
And the old house was right exactly where that one is. Oh, it was a huge, big house. And it was there at the time of the war because the rafters had all been shattered and spliced, you know, and all that. Cannonballs, they'd fire from the ships or from Navy Island or somewhere. And we found lots of cannonballs all over the lawn and everything. Whatever you'd be digging or in the garden.
That house was
Oh.
very
Cannonballs.
lived in it.
6-inch cannonballs, 6-inch ones and 3-inch ones. Solid steel balls.
Who owned that house before you, like, do you know who it belonged to?
Mr. Wright owned it, and he was from Buffalo. He was a blind man, and he was a rich man. He had chauffeur and all that, and he'd come over there. I seen him myself, but my dad would have to go to Buffalo and pay the rent once a year, and them days when the streetcar run from Chippewa, cross the bridge, then he'd take the high-speed car up to Buffalo and pay the rent, and back again. That is the way they traveled then. And one time the streetcar used to run up to Slater's Dock, but then it wasn't there anymore at that time. They made the boulevard and everything. But they were just making the road up through there when we moved up there. It wasn't finished yet. It was finished up as far as just almost there, up to the Snyders. Joe Snyders lived on the north side. Well, anyway, I seen them working there and they took apple trees out after we lived there because the trees run right out. There's a huge orchard there, and they run right out to before that there was just a trail along the river, and from there up to Black Creek there was just a trail, or to a shipyard, just a trail. Down as far as the shipyard they had a new road made, and then they started making a road around the shipyard. That was there for years and years before they made straight across, done away with the
It's still there,
shipyard.
isn't it? Yeah, it's
Shipyard
still
used
there.
to come way back in, you know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that road wasn't completed for years and years afterwards. I don't know why. They just kind of had a slump there. They did, and it was a terrible road from our place up to the shipyard. Well, then finally they got it all finished, But there was no telephone and no hydro anywhere along there. Finally, George Boyd got the telephone. That is at the Boyd Road, and it came out from, there was a Stephensville line that came out, and he had a telephone. The Iveses, they couldn't get one, and the people above them, well, I guess at Black Creek, I think they were on a line, I don't know if they were on the line up there or whether there's one came out to Black Creek, but Black Creek had a telephone. So when there was anything wrong at home, you had a call, you'd have to go up to George Myers lived there, or Frank Meyer lived there.
George Boyd?
Frank Meyer. And the Boyds wasn't living there then yet.
Oh.
But Frank Meyer was the one who had the phone. So my sister was sick. She had the flu, and while it persisted, I think my dad took her to Dr. Gray at Chippewa, and he didn't know what was wrong. So, see, the flu was something new then. That was, that was 1917, I think.
Wasn't there a big epidemic at that time?
Yeah,
of flu?
Buffalo,
Yeah.
people died like flies in Buffalo. Anyway, George Willoughby had the flu, and he got a hold of Doc Buell.
Is
And
that
Doc-
Agnes Swinton's husband? Was that Agnes Swinton's husband? George Willoughby? Is that who?
Agnes's husband.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ray's father. And he was so low, too, that didn't know what to do with him. Dr. Buell, he had some information
You're from
like from Buffalo, see, because he lived in Stephensville.
Oh.
And so I think he's the one that told our folks about it, that Dr. Buell knew what this disease was. So then to get a hold of him was another thing. My dad had to drive to Frank Myers and call up, and the roads are so heavy, the snow was so bad, heavy, that his horse played out on him. He come down, he got that far though, he got to Frank Myers. Well, I guess they made that arrangement. They knew the roads was real bad, and he said that he should meet him there. So my dad went and met him there, and then took him down, and well, he knew what to do, and she pulled through it. She was a pretty sick girl, and she was only, well, she was born there. She'd only been 4, I think she was 4 years old. And anyway, then he had to take him back, and his horse had been rested up, fed, everything, so he could get back again. But he was on the go all the time them days, just wallowing through the snow. And Fred Somerville said how he went back there, and his horse played out down by John Willoughby's. And well, the Somervilles lived there then. William Somerville lived there. So he had to leave the horse there, and he walked across country through the snowbanks with a great big buffalo coat on. And Fred said that they seen him going across the fences. He had to go over the fences, you know, and he had a satchel with him. And then his dad was going to take him back, but they couldn't get through with the horse. It was such a bad time. And he walked back, got his horse and went back again. Fred remember that, he'd tell you that story. Told me about it. So that's the kind of stuff that went on them days.
You went to school where the museum is now, didn't you?
Oh yeah, the old school was there yet. And
The old one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I went to school there. lots of kids there. The school was full. There was, the families was,
Ives. The Ives.
yeah, the Iveses.
That's Ives.
There was 3 of them, and there was who am I thinking? The Rickers, and the Willick family, Harry and Carrie, and Dorothy, and
Wilford.
Wilford. There was 4 of them, and the Jimmy Myers and Bob went for a little while that winter. And the Weavers lived at the river then, so Earl went to school there, same time as Bob Myers that winter, and then they moved to Tonawanda. And so Gord, Buck, and
Arnie?
huh?
Arnie? Eva?
I don't know if Arnie,
Or Eva? Or Esther?
Eva, and the other one,
Esther.
Esther, and I don't know if Arnie, I can't remember.
He was the youngest, so maybe
Oh,
not.
no, he wasn't in that. No. Gord was just a little fella, because he couldn't get up on the. They had a cupola up in the front. That was on the new school.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's on the news.
But we went to the old one.
What was the old one like?
Oh, it was a wood school, all wood,
Uh-huh.
and it was built like you'd see the pictures of the old schools, you know, and it is pretty old, and it had no basement, and the rats was prevalent under the floor, and they used to come up and run across the room, and of course everybody had lunch, and they'd little dip dabs all over. They'd come and get that, and
Was the teacher afraid of the rats, or did she?
oh yeah, some of the teachers were scared of them. But then the furnace, just a big wood stove, a great big iron stove right in the middle of the room,
Really?
and 1914, yeah, it'd been 1914. Well, it's when the war, when all the soldiers came in to protect the waterfront. They marched all the way. They had sections to do from Niagara Falls. I don't know just how, but Black Creek. I think they came from Chippewa to Black Creek, and then from Black Creek to Fort Erie, and then that was the end of the line. But there'd be 5 in a group. Sergeant, or was it 6? There was 7 of them, because there was. I remember they used to come into the school to get warm. It was a terrible cold winter, and they'd come in and stand on both sides of the stove, line up 3 on each side, sergeant in the middle. That's how I remember there was 7.
Oh.
And then here, these rats, one of them, and they were so strict. They couldn't talk to anybody. They just sit there, just stand there. They had attention, you know. So then here the rat run across right through where they were, right kitty corner all the way across the school, and they had a giggle and laugh. You know, that sergeant, he made them snap their attention. Out they went. They didn't dare do that.
Oh.
I never forget that. Everybody thought it was a mean thing to do, but that was the law. That is how they did things then.
What were the desks like? What were the desks in the school, in the old school like? Were they the iron, like you know how we have them now, the little pieces of iron on the side, or were they all wood?
Well, they were a little different. They was like for, yeah, I guess 2. The other,
Double seats?
huh?
Double seats?
Yeah, they were double. There was two. There was two in each one. Yeah, that's right.
I
Because
remember that.
I used to sit with Wilford, and we'd get heck from Agnes
Talking.
because we'd talk a little bit or something,
Copy.
and she'd get after us and give us a strap.
Yes, she
So then,
never heard that.
you know, we was pretty tough. She'd hammer away, and nothing happened. See? And then she'd land up over the desk crying, put her head on the desk crying.
She couldn't make you cry, so she cried.
No, we didn't do nothing.
She
We
got
just,
so
we
mad, I
couldn't
suppose.
help but laugh because
She'd make her mad. That made her mad.
you see, wanted to get her going. She was going with George, you know. She married George. Well, that is Wilford's brother.
Telling stuff.
So then she thought that we was whispering something about her, you know, and George. She was pretty young.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't a full-fledged teacher yet.
She was 17, I think.
And she was only 17, I think. She was like a kid herself. And she'd just break right down. And then the worst of it was she boarded at our place. And then she used to tell my mother about what bad kids we were and that. And there was no such thing. We didn't do nothing, you know.
Oh,
And then she was like a kid. She'd get things started. She'd want to tell about what happened, you know. And then I think we dunked her in the rain barrel one time.
yeah, imagine.
And then we got a licking from my father.
Yeah, I remember them saying
I
that.
remember.
Oh my God, I'll never forget those things. Oh, and then another time, she was always clowning, see. She wouldn't leave anybody alone. She was kind of a kid yet, you know. And anyway, that house was a big house, and a big upstairs. Beautiful rooms, but nothing. There was no heat, you know. Just a stove downstairs. There was no central heating, never was. And we had a stove in the kitchen and another big stove in the dining room. Well, that was the only heat that you'd get. So everything was cold when you went to bed. And we went and Uncle Gerald was over there. That was the time when he was there.
Yeah.
And we went and tied a string on her sheet, on the corner of the sheet. And we went and give it a pull after she got to bed. And she pretty near went hysterical. And then we got heck over that. And then we had a bicycle. Well, that is after Uncle Gerald went to Buffalo. Why, we bought the bicycle from him. My dad bought that from him. So Jim and I used to ride the bicycle. He'd ride on the crossbar and I'd pedal. And it had one of them squawkers on it, a real loud squawker. And she'd be up about maybe by McCready Place. She had a long walk, you know. Well, it was a long ways. And she'd be going along and we'd run up pretty close behind her. I don't know, Jim, I guess. One of us, anyway, we'd squawk that thing. And she'd get so frustrated and mad.
Why she couldn't get away from
Tell
you guys.
everybody about it.
I don't know how long she taught there, though. She went back to school then again, didn't she, after that?
Huh?
Didn't she go to school after that? She had to go back to school after that? See, she was more on trial, I think.
Oh, yeah, she did. She had to go to normal school.
Yeah,
I think.
see, she was just on, you know.
Yeah,
just-
she was just.
Yeah.
I guess she. Mary taught down at number 4. She was the oldest one,
Yeah.
and Kathleen was teaching up here. There
Number
were 2
5.
sisters.
Oh, yeah.
So of course, they guess they needed a teacher out there. Miss Niemeyer was there before her. She was our teacher in the old school yet.
So that's how she got in young.
That was in 1914, 1915 when they built the new school.
Make me want to know more.
What did you want to
And
ask
that's when
about the
Agnes
school?
started, I think.
Yeah,
Like what it was
more
like
history.
inside?
Well, that's enough on that now.
But I
Start
think
on
it was
history.
account of them being teachers here, and they needed one, and she filled in there.
Did can you remember what it was like inside the old school? What kind of light did they have lights in the school, or what?
Well, of course, there was no electricity at all.
No. Did they have any lamps, or did it just you just didn't go at night? You didn't
No,
need any light at all, or
no.
lamps?
Well, it was just like coal oil lights or
Mhm.
lanterns or something like that. If they had a, they had entertainments at Christmas time,
Oh, yeah.
but then they'd have just lamps like that there, or you know.
They had Christmas concerts. at
Oh
your
yeah, they
school,
had Christmas concerts, and they had them in the new school too.
I remember
Did they
going
set up
to
a
them.
stage for the Christmas concerts? Do you remember?
Well, there was a stage in the old school.
Oh, there was.
Oh yeah, a low one, you know,
Platform, like,
just a low one about,
you know.
yeah.
That one.
And the desk goes up on there, and then I guess, I guess the blackboard was up there, and then whatever little furnishing, something at each end. I forget what it was, but it was all the way across the front of the school.
At number 5?
Yeah.
Now, at number 5, the platform came out and around, and the doors to the woodshed and that were on the main floor,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, that's the way that
Is
one
that
was
how?
too.
Yeah, like a semicircle, sort of.
Yeah, there was a back door went out to the toilets, the old toilets outside.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they were individuals outside, and then there was a stove in the middle, and I think I forget whether it was a cloakroom. It must have been though.
Well,
It
they used
was
to
a,
hang
it
them
was
in
a
the
pretty
back of
good
the
sized
school.
school.
They had,
I believe there was a.
in the back of the school, you used to just have
But
like
there was
Like a little shelf
just
over
these big
it.
hooks,
Yeah,
you know, to
perhaps.
hang your
And
clothes.
shelves
Your,
for lunch
Yeah.
pails.
You remember them building the new school?
the what?
Do you remember them building the new
Oh,
school?
yeah. Oh yeah, they built it all while we were going to the old school yet.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
right behind the other one.
Uh-huh.
And then as soon as they opened, they moved that one away. They had a mover come. John Ives bought it,
Oh,
and they moved it over on his farm, and he used it for an implement shed.
Maybe it's still there.
And
That would be I.
uh,
Would it still be there? That's on Gladys Ives'
yeah,
place?
there's a portion of it there yet.
Huh. Wow. That'd be something. You know.
Some of it was. I don't know what really happened, but they took part of it away. Probably tore it out and used the lumber or whatever, and there's just like a good-sized garage left. And I think it's still there. I don't know whether it's been moved back since or not, but it used to be right directly across that little road from the school. And that lady that was a bootlegger, what was her name? She bought that place from John Ives.
Well, did John Ives own that whole corner there then?
Yeah,
Were there
he owned
any
that
other?
whole farm?
No other houses there then? Probably.
Nobody there except John Ives.
Oh.
And then the next one was the Lee brothers.
Yeah.
The next was the McCready place. And then there was our place. That was way down, a mile further. Because that was an awful big farm. And that was all open and nobody living there at all.
well, that house, the old house that you lived in, would have been on the Battle of Chippewa area, wouldn't it have been in that area? Near Usher's Creek?
Well, Boyer's Creek. It was on this side of Boyer's Creek, on the south side of Boyer's Creek.
Yeah, I'm a little mixed
No.
up. Just a little. Not
Chippewa,
sure.
I don't
Or is
know
he- or
if
would
there
he
was any
Usher?
dividing line then or not, but
You mean Usher's Creek?
Huh?
You mean Usher's Creek or Boyer's Creek?
oh, that was
Usher's, was it?
Usher's Creek.
Yeah.
Yes, he
Cause-
said,
Yeah. Is it Boyer's up by Les
And
Willoughby?
the road there is still the same road. Runs back there and it comes out where Fred Somerville lives now. That's
Well,
Oh yeah, Winebrenner. Or they call it Winebrenner in the Chippewa end, and Edgeworth Road. I think they call it on the Boulevard side. And out by Fred's, it's Winebrenner.
Winebrenner Road.
Yeah.
It used to be Winebrenner Road all the way through.
Oh, they changed a little part
Oh,
of it.
maybe they did. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But that was all along Winebrenner Road, and there was nobody on that Winebrenner Road until you got right back to the road that's there. This
Willoughby Drive?
Huh?
Willoughby
Yeah, Willoughby
Drive?
Drive.
Yeah.
Church then, was it?
And that was called Concession Road then. They
Concession.
didn't call it Willoughby Road. And there was an old place right at the corner on the southwest corner of that, just when you make the turn to go to Chippewa. And I guess there's still remnants of it there yet. The brush and the old mess was never cleaned up. The house fell down and just laid there. And as far as I know, you can see it yet, where that across from that school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And I used to know the name of the people who lived there. And I can't think who it was now. Maybe it was Winebrenner, I don't know. But that is a Winebrenner Road. That might have been the old Winebrenner place. Because there was Winebrenners lived in Chippewa later on that I knew of.
When you were in the like, I'm just going back to the new school from it. Like you watched it being built and everything.
Yeah.
And then you moved. The school moved into the new one. And
Yeah.
did you go to that one very long?
We went to school there until 1919 when we moved back to Sodom Road right here now. My dad bought Hardy Morning Star Place. It used to be the old Durlier farm.
That's what Jim
And
Murdoch's
Murdoch's owned it before, and then Hardy Morning Star bought it from the Murdochs. And then my dad bought it in 1919. Then we still went to school up here at number 6 for a while.
Or 5.
On Sodom.
Oh, up here at
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
I guess I just went about a year, and I was finished. I was gone.
Yeah, number 5.
Yeah.
Huh?
Number 5.
Just up here on the
Mixed
Sodom.
up, yeah.
So how long did you go to the new school then out there? Were you out there?
Well, from 1915 to 19.
Oh.
Would you have seen the
4 years.
on the boulevard? You would have seen then them working on constructing the new
Oh yeah,
the new
on the
boulevard.
road they were working all with teams of horses and handwork. There wasn't a machine of any kind when they built that road until they come to pave it. They never paved it for a long while. It was just graveled, you know. But it was all done with the horses and wagons. And then to make the ditches, they always had a unique way along that boulevard. They made good drainage always, and culverts and all that. And it was all done by hand. A whole bunch of men, a lot of them were Italians, and they'd load the wagons. And then when the wagon was loaded, or they'd pull it away, they had these dump wagons, you know. And
Did they use any steam engines or anything of
well,
that nature?
they used steam rollers when they come to finish the road, you know, steam rollers. Well, they were the same as these rollers they use now. They were steam boiler on them.
I think we have a picture of, you remember Wilfred Hicks? Old Wilfred Hicks?
Yeah.
Well, Wilfred's father operated a steamroller on the boulevard, and we have a picture of him.
You know who else
Look at that.
operated one was the one that used to sell coal to us from Stephensville.
Oh.
Oh, you like this like
By
Jake.
Jake. Oh,
And
keep
one
talking,
of
I'll
his
think.
son just died a
I
while
know.
ago.
Hyde!
Hyde. Jim Hyde. Just operate steamroller along there. And then my Uncle Henry, he was a steamroller man. Because they had different sections where they'd work on, and but they had their key men to do that job. I don't know, I don't remember him running one there, but later on down, well, I worked for him later on down when they made the road from Queenston, where they made the road. They used to go around Queenston, and they made another cut down the hill and went right through the town. And I worked on that. I drove horses, me and Sailor, Wilford Sailor. I drove John Ives's, I drove Norman Meyer's team, and Wilford drove John Ives's team. And we kept our teams in a little stone barn there. It was a beautiful little barn. And the old bridge was still there, going across to Lewiston, and it was right there. And that's where the landing was, where the boat came in, and the streetcars come down. They'd connect with the boat. When the boat came, cars would all come in. Some of them went to Niagara Falls, New York, and some went to Niagara Falls, Ontario, and Chippewa. See? And there was a branch off that went to Thorold, out of Niagara Falls. Everybody went on streetcars. And we got free rides because we worked for the Park Commission. And Wilford used to stay down at the barn. 1 week maybe, he'd stay there and take care of the horses. Very few times that I stayed because he liked to stay there. He didn't have no place to go anyway when he come home. But when I come home, I'd get to Chippewa and I'd have to walk from there home. Because unless I was lucky to get a ride with somebody, but there wasn't very many people running around then. There was all horses, you know.
The house across from the museum, old Bill Scott lived there for a long time. Do you remember anything about when it was built,
Yeah.
or how long it's been there?
That's that big house.
Yeah.
What was her name? That's what I was trying to think of. I helped to make the cellar. That wasn't at the time. That wasn't there when we went to school yet. It was probably about the time when I finished school here. I was about 15, and I worked for Uncle Henry, and we dug the cellar with the horses and the scraper, and we had to take, I think it was 4 big apple trees out, and we had to cut them and then dig around them and pull the roots out of the horses. And trying to think of her name, the lady. And then she started bootlegging there.
Oh, interesting place.
What was her name anyway?
Handy right on the river.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever hearing.
Oh, gee.
Nellie would know, wouldn't she? The one I'm thinking of lives on the river.
It's a beautiful
Nellie
house.
Francis.
Oh.
Would she remember?
Maybe she would.
She must have had a lot of money because she built a beautiful big house there.
Yeah, it is a big place.
They had water piped in. They were the first ones, I guess, to have.
Was it a familiar name? Like, was it a family from the area or no?
She was from the States.
Uh-huh.
She was from Buffalo, I think. I knew her personally, really.
Well, maybe it'll come to you another time.
Yeah,
That's
we
Yeah.
just
I just can't remember that name now.
Well, the boys, when did they build that house? That big house?
So it had to be around maybe 1920, I imagine.
Then during Prohibition was when a lot of bootlegging went on.
Oh yeah, another place was out here the end of this road. Who was them old brothers that lived there? 3 brothers. Were Diedenbeck, Wilbur Diedenbeck, his mother lived down a little bit, and they lived on the corner. There was 3 acres there. They lived there, and they were bootleggers. And they kept the horse in the house. Yeah, that's a good story. They kept the horse in the house,
Didn't dream it.
and it built up so bad with manure and everything. They never cleaned it out. And the thing fell down too, the horse and all, went into the cellar.
Where were they all the while?
Huh?
Where were they all the while?
Well, they lived there. Oh, you know who I mean. What was their name?
I know who you mean, but I don't know.
They used to come out here to Bull Jake's all the time. They'd drink cider and get drunk, and then Bull Jake would go out there, and then they'd have a whole party of it. It was a bootlegger place too. And anyway, Newt Bond, he's the one who reminded me of it. He helped to get the.
Okay. Newt Bond. Yeah.
Yeah, Newt.
Yeah.
I guess you know him. He lives here in
Too bad
the
he's
last
not here.
house on.
Yeah, 2 could.
Oh no, they built a new house there on the other side of them now. On used to be the old Black Creek Road. Huh?
Yeah.
He's still there.
Yeah.
He lives right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can't
were
get
these
out there
3
anymore. They
brothers?
come back
Which
around.
road is that out by
What are their
Wilbur
names?
Dietenbeck? Which house? Which street went out? Was it
I can't think what they were.
which road went out there by like Wilbur Dietenbeck's?
This road right down here.
Oh, it's Somerville now, but it used
Oh, that was
Seaford.
Seifert.
Seifert.
Yeah.
Seifert Road.
Yeah, that's right,
That's
Seifert.
the
Road.
Seifert
They should
Road.
never have changed.
Maybe
their name.
what was their name? Maybe was their name Seifert?
No,
Huh?
No.
no. Oh, you know, it kind of.
I know it makes you so mad when you.
Pete Seifert. Pete Seifert Road.
Mhm.
And then the house came in there while we were. Well, that was right about that time when the house moved in there. They came from Buffalo, and they started that big farm, and they had purebred cows. And they checked all the milk. They milked 4 times a day.
All by hand.
Huh?
All by hand.
Oh yeah, all by hand. And Reuben Morningstar worked for him. Newt Bond, I think he worked for him part of the time. He worked. I don't know if he worked for them first or worked for Sandy Dill first, but he came here from the old country. But he's always been in that area, and he knows an awful lot about what went on in Black Creek and all that area. The old stories, he could tell you. Anyway, the hoax, how was that? Yeah, Reuben, and who else? I'm trying to think who all worked for hoax. Ort, Charlie's brother, older brother.
Almond?
Huh?
Richard.
Oh, the other one,
Richard.
Richard, I think, used to milk cows. They have to milk at midnight, you know, and every 4 hours they weigh the milk, and then they had prizes for those cattle, you know. And then we had a school up here at Stephensville, agriculture school, and I went to that. That is, I think, 1920. And me and Anthony Willicks and some of them on Bone Road. I can't think of the names anymore. There was quite a school. And they had a teacher from Guelph, and we had the room up above Edgar Hexamer's garage.
That's the
That
Stephensville
is a
garage.
school. And we drive a horse up there and keep the horse at Ted Hawkins' livery barn.
Where was that now?
Well, right
Stephensville.
behind the hotel, where that big building is, right behind the hotel.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah.
is where there's a big long livery barn there. Oh, I guess you could put 20 horses in there. And you had feed and everything there always for them. And then we'd go to school, and then the horse, I think it cost 25 cents a day to put the horse, and then the horse be ready to go when we went home. And one time my Anthony rode with me, and that, of course, that road had two corners at New Germany then, sharp corners. And it was going around the corner. I just had left Anthony out, and I didn't have a hold of the lines or getting the rope up over me. And that little mare took a quick jump, turned quick, and upset the cutter. It landed right over by Andrew Bowers. They used to live right across from the hotel, a place that burnt. Landed right in the ditch over there. So the mare kept on going, and the cutter went up again. She went right for home. So I started to walk home. When I got down to almost to Baker Road, why I seen the cutter coming back. My dad got her and come back to get me.
Oh, that Anthony Willick was the son of the harness maker, John the harness maker.
Oh,
so
I
that's where
see.
he was
Yeah.
taken.
This agricultural school, how long did you go to this agricultural school that was in Stephensville?
Well, I think it was 2 seasons, but I went just a short time the one time. But the first to go off, I was for all of it, and I done pretty well. I learned how to trim trees. I got prizes for pretty everything, and they gave out prizes then. And they give prizes for judging cattle. We went out to House to judge cattle, and I got first prize judging milk cows. And I got a purebred pig for it.
Oh, this was a prize.
Yeah, I had to go to Welland to get. My mother drove over with a horse buggy to Dr. Hutton's over in Welland. Got the pig. There's quite a famous pig around here. A boar pig, and everybody wanted wanted that pig. Yeah, they bring their animals here to get
Purebred.
Oh, I had quite a business.
She says that's how you got so rich.
Huh?
Mom said that's how you got so rich with your boar
Well,
pig.
Until I left
Bored,
home
I'd say.
altogether, I kept track of everything, and I had books on it, and it was run up to $300 or $400, for the service for these other farmers.
You
come
go
from
around
all
with a
over.
rope around the pig's neck.
Well, then my dad never kept track after I went away. He never kept track anymore, but he still, for years after that, they were still coming there. And he was mad about it. It was a big nuisance for him, and he wouldn't bother
I
about
don't
charging them
blame
or nothing, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Where I was
that made it
business-like
something.
with it. Well, anyway,
That's enough on the pig
we
story.
killed that big pig, and he dressed 540 pounds.
Dressed.
Yeah.
That's a good sized pig. When I'm just trying to get in my mind what it looked like on the boulevard. I know I keep going back to the boulevard, but you said it was just a trail it was just a trail when you first lived along there.
Well, it was a road,
Mhm.
but it was a narrow road
Mhm.
and run right along the riverbank.
Mhm.
It was a dangerous road. And then some places that used to wash out where they wouldn't be able to go. Like near Black Creek there, or up a little further from Black Creek, they used to have to close it off and they couldn't get through. And there didn't seem to be no way around. They'd just be sunk with it. Well, up in there where I suppose is the end of Netherby Road, where it used to go to the river. That there's about the area where it was real bad. Used to flood away in. And in the winter time, they'd have to drive around take the rail fences away and get through.
Do you remember what the bridges were like, the old bridges that crossed all the creeks?
Well, I just remember a little bit about the Black Creek Bridge. When they moved it, they moved that out and made a new one. And it was taken back to near the Somervilles there. They put it across
Oh, yeah.
Lyons Creek.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what happened to the Black Creek Bridge?
Yeah.
Oh, back by Farron's then. Back by Farron's in that back
Yeah.
across
Yeah. What's the other road? The road
Rexinger?
where Benny live. Benny and them live.
Back.
I think it was Beck Road. I think it was Beck Road. They called it. My memory is terrible. I could remember that sometimes. They had a name for it.
Not Rexinger Road, no. Not back in there.
No?
Like I'm picturing a bridge that you can see from the Queenie or something, or isn't that?
Gee, I can't remember that now. The name. It's a family name. They called it after.
Oh, something bridge, like a family name for
Yeah.
the bridge. Oh, yeah, we were reading today that little newspaper clipping about the council was talking about all these different bridges.
Yeah.
It's probably in
And
there.
they mentioned Lemon Bridge and
And
some
it
other
took my
bridge, and
tongue,
I can't remember that
Oh.
that name. But it would be a family from back in that area.
There's a lemon
It
road.
would be a family from
Yeah,
that
Lemon
area.
Road.
Yeah.
They would have named it after
Yeah,
that
that's
family.
right. I can't think who the heck it was now. But that's what happened to that bridge, and they built a stone bridge there.
Yeah.
And then they built a new bridge. Well, that new bridge was built before we moved up. That was just in the process of being built then.
Last thing out,
And
I don't know.
I think when we first moved up there, we were still using the old bridge, but I can't remember much about it. I was pretty young.
Such a nice hot fire.
And I can't just recall, but it was just an old wooden bridge that we had across. And they built this stone bridge at Boyer's Creek, right across,
Oh, yeah.
beside it.
Yeah.
And then they had a little bridge built over to an island. There was an island there.
Oh, yeah. At Usher's, it's still there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but is the bridge there yet? Yeah,
It's a stone bridge.
it's probably, yeah, and then there was a little bridge running across
To the island?
to the island.
There's just a little wooden bridge there, just to
Yeah.
the island. Yeah. Just to walk on, though, like it
Yeah,
was.
just to walk,
Just to walk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it wasn't there for quite a few years, and they built a new one, I think. But at that time, there was a bridge there then, a little walk bridge, because that is right near our home. We used to go and play there, right at the end of our orchard. And what the heck they call that little island? Had a name for that too. It was just a wee little spot. It wasn't very big.
No, it's just a tiny one. Yeah, it's still there.
But a branch of the creek came out on one side of it and then out into the river on the other side. And that's where Joe Snyder used to keep his sturgeon in there. He'd catch sturgeon in the river and tie them in there until he was going to butcher them and take them to market. And they'd drive stakes down below the surface of the water. People would steal them. So they'd drive the stake down below and tie it, then they wouldn't be seen so easy, you know. Oh, he had some big sturgeons, great big things. I used to go with him and bait the lines. He had 3 night lines right across from the main shore to Navy Island.
Patty Miles.
And they were stretched real tight, and then they were anchored at each end. And then
yeah.
about,
Interesting thing.
I think it was about 6 feet apart,
More personal.
where he had the night lines tied
That's
on.
interesting too, you know, they like
Great big hook, and it was on a string, And then
Good night.
I'd
Another
go
day or
along
so.
and well, he'd have to
Penny.
fish the main line up and put it on the bow of the boat. And then we'd have to go across the river sideways and
Leave.
when we get to each one of them, well, you'd have to lift it over the bow of the boat because you didn't paddle or
Did you
anything
make
going
coffee?
across. You just pull on the wire,
Fresh coffee sure
just
makes a
ease your
coffee
way
too,
across.
which you have.
Well, then
I
there was
never thought
anything
of
on,
Well, it
why
doesn't
then you
matter. She won't need
have to,
anything.
he'd have to get his gap hook and get it in the boat, and then rebait all the hooks, see if they were all rebaited again.
Then he would take all of this that he caught to market and sell it in Chippewa
He'd sell it over in the States.
and the States.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they always made big money because sturgeon was always something that is, and especially what do they call the eggs?
Oh, the caviar.
Yeah.
Isn't that what caviar
And
is?
that's where he made big money.
Mhm.
And I guess most of the time, I don't think it was legal really, but he did it all with a rowboat, you know.
Mhm.
He used to go across the foot of Navy Island. He'd row across, right straight across. At the foot, mind you, near the falls.
That's
That
dangerous.
was the route he always took. I remember when he used to go, he'd have everything all set and he'd leave early in the morning when he was going over to sell this sturgeon. Oh, he made big money. Him and Dick, both his son, they were both in that business. And I think it was illegal, really. They weren't supposed to sell it in the States. I can't remember too much about how that was, but they were always cautious about it and quiet. They didn't want to know.
Yeah, that's probably why.
But I used to help old Joe bait them lines. It was a cold, nasty job because and it was slow. You know, you just have to go easy across. And there was 3 lines to bait. Oh, you
And sturgeon are deep, like don't they? They have to go deep, don't they?
yeah. Sure, it laid right on the
Yeah.
bottom. Those lines laid right on the bottom. So he had a gapping. He had all the equipment for do that. He had a hook, grappling hook
Mm-hmm.
on a rope that he'd pull the line up with, and then we'd get started and go all the way across. And when there was a sturgeon on, she'd be yanking and pulling, because they were big beggars.
Yes, they are. God.
He had one, 300 and some pounds, and he had it hanging in a tree right by the bridge there. There was a big tree there. Had it pulled up with a tackle box, and that's where he skinned it and prepared it, you know. And I remember he had race horses too, and he said it weighed half as much as a racehorse.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a big. That's
Well,
big.
see, racehorses was around 700 pounds, or right around that. Some of them were bigger maybe, and I don't know, it's half as big as a racehorse. And I think it's 300. I can't remember 340 or something that surgeon weighed. It was. I know there were people come and took pictures of it and everything. It was supposed to be one of the biggest ones. I don't know if there's any other bigger than that. I don't know.
Mm.
But that is quite a remarkable thing. It is a historical thing, I guess.
Taking the largest one
Yeah.
out of the Niagara. Alan and I were just discussing the changes along here. Like, you know, where they put in the airport?
Yeah.
There used to be farms there.
Oh, yeah.
And I was wondering if you could tell us, like, who was there before they put that airport in.
Well, yes. The first one, like from where John Willoughby lived,
Yes.
and when we moved up here, John Willoughby lived there on that part. It was on this side of that Buzzard Road.
Mm-hmm.
The Buzzard Road, that's where it started. And but he didn't own the farm. It was Will House's farm. And Will House moved from Niagara Falls up there, and he used to have a jewelry shop in Niagara Falls. And he had a hardware store in Niagara Falls. And he moved his hardware store up there, and all his clocks and well, I guess he sold out, but then brought all these other things, his business, brought it all up there, and that is quite a famous house, the very first one. It was an old house, and it had a big oven, brick oven in it, for baking bread, the old-fashioned way. They used to use charcoal and load them ovens and then bake bread. And that was right on at the west side of the house. And John Willick lived there until when? I can't think just when. Oh, John Willick lived there before Will House did. He lived there when we moved up here. That was before 1919. And then, well, I'm trying to figure John Willick. John Willick lived out across from where that there on Diedenbeck Road.
Yes.
He lived over right in the middle of the field. When Joey was born, that's where he lived. Joey was born in 1913. Well, then his wife died, and Joey was he was premature. And then the grandma, John Willick's mother, she lived right at the Solemn on the Diedenbeck Road, where Merle Willick lives now. And she took care of that little Joey. Used to keep him in a cigar box. He was so little. And she wrapped him in olive oil. Every time she put him away, she had these flannel cloths. She'd wrap them all up in olive oil, put them in there. Because I was only about 6 years old then. But I can remember him real well because I used to stay at my grandmother's. And I always run over there to see him. And I'd watch her fixing him up and all that, you know. And he lived till just last year. He just died, you know, Joe.
For goodness sake, and he.
Anyway, then John moved. The Somervilles, William Somerville moved to Netherby. That's where Jackie Willick lives now, Jackie and Marlene.
Oh yes.
And but the old place, they moved it back, and it was just an old relic. They used it for a shed or something. And then John moved that house from over on the Diedenbeck Road out there, and that's where he lived then. Then he got married again. Well then, but in the meantime, that's where John was living, in this place up here. After that was in between 1913 and, well, I don't know when they started that. Well, it was during the war when they started that airport. But John lived there almost until then. But in the meantime, Will House sold out down, sold his place down there, and he moved up to this place on Buzzard Road. And that's where all those, and Norman bought the house when the airport went in there. Norman bought the house. It had already been sold. Will House sold it to the people that it's going to make the government, I guess. Well, then Norman bought the house cheap, and Will House sold him all those things. That's how Norman had so many things, clocks
And the old house that had the brick oven in it, whatever happened to that?
well, Norman got that, but they didn't. They tore the brick oven off when he moved it up here, and he moved it up here just the other side of this road, this first road.
Sour.
Huh?
Who, Uncle Norm's?
Yeah,
Sour?
yeah, but it used to be the other road then. It used to be,
Oh.
I can't remember names, that's the trouble. But anyway, Norm moved it up there, but the old brick oven and that was just left there. They just, well, I guess he kept some of the brick.
I know. We called it Uncle Norm's Road. We always called it Uncle
Oh,
Norm's Road when we were
yeah.
kids.
Well, anyway, he's the first one to buy a house there. Well, then the next one was Joe Trendle house. That's this house here.
This was a Trendle house.
Yeah,
This was Joe Trendle's house?
yeah, this is Joe Trendle house.
Okay.
And it was on, what road is that?
Oh, Marshall?
No, where the restaurant is.
Shirk.
Shirk
Oh,
Road.
sure. Oh, across.
That is a Shirk Road. And it was on this side of the Sodom, in quite a ways, about 500 feet in. And the old Trendle place was still there, the old log place. But it was down that way a little bit. And it was all demolished. They didn't do anything with it. Just demolished that. And this house, I bought it and moved it up here. And the next one was,
Well, is that when Joe Trendle moved to Marshall Road, or?
no, not Marshall. Oh, no.
Joe Trendle.
No, they moved down the Marshall Road, yeah, after he sold it to the government. So I bought this from the government too. Then the next one was Edwin Sauer's place. And Frank Gray bought that. And he moved it up here right next hour lot. And I already had a cellar dug. Grandpa gave us a lot. I had a cellar dug on the other side of where Frank moved in. Then they changed their plans. The highway wouldn't let us build there because it was going to be too close to the highway. So they paid for closing up the cellar and me digging another cellar. And my dad gave me a lot up here. So then we moved, the house on that. And Frank moved the house. He was all right. He was just barely all right. It was too close, but they let it go. Well, then they wanted some more land, so they made us move again. But they paid for the moving. So this house, I moved it twice now.
So about how old do you think this house, originally, how old is this house?
Well, I don't really know. I should try to get, but it's as old as Jim's house, and Jim's house is over 100 years old. And I'm thinking that the same carpenters built it because they're built similar. And I think it's way over 100 years old. Especially that kitchen. That's got them great big beams that have never had the bark taken off of it.
Oh, yeah.
You could see it there in that part, the cellar. And that part didn't have any cellar under it when I moved it the first time. It was just crawl space under it. But it was all in pretty good shape. And then it used to be one step down from this part into the kitchen. And it used to be turned the other way. I turned it around.
There isn't a picture of this one out there, is there? Like, no.
So then I brought it up level and had to join the roof different again and all that. Been a lot of work done on this place since it had moved from down there. And Norm's place had moved from there back to the Art Road. And it was set up just exactly the same as it was out here.
I recognize it.
It's
I
exactly
can
the
tell.
same. That poor fellow, he's got cancer now.
Oh no.
Yeah, he was going to do so much. He just retired, and he's got cancer. I don't know. I haven't heard anything lately, but he was in the hospital the last time I heard him. Just last week when we was down the doctor way, I heard that he was in there.
Do you remember anything? Like, was there any activity at the airport? Did they have any planes in there? Did they do anything there after they built it?
Well, they graded it all up, and it's all under drained. And they made a great big ditch around the outside for drainage, and then there's tiles all and some places for drainage, great big sump holes where you go down in, and they're still in there. And the contractor, there's such a dry summer when he done it, he used to come over to Norm's and get water from the pond to make the cement for these, put these wells in, you know. Then there's tiles running from one to the other all around where the runways were. And they did land a few planes there, but just, I don't think they were Army planes. I think they were, I don't really know, but there was a few planes landed. But they never had, it was just leveled off. They never had any pavement or anything.
It was like just grass runway, or did they have stone on it?
They had, just some of them were stoned. I don't know how much of it was done, really.
So would Sour Road, would that part of Uncle Norm's, their site, was that Seifert Road? Like, was that an extension of it or no?
They came right up to
Would that have been?
Phillip. Yeah, they came as far as Phillips. Oh yeah, there was Phillip Willoughby came between. There was another one that had moved out, and who was it bought his place?
Del Henderson.
Henderson.
No, but I was trying to think, would that have been Seifert Road? Like what's Sour Road now? That Uncle Norm lived on? Was that Seifert then?
Yeah.
It was,
Seifert
so it
Road,
went, yeah.
all the way through.
But it was,
yeah,
it
right
was
from the
because
river
of it.
right back to
Willowdale or
Willowdale, where the school is.
yeah.
Oh, so they changed the road's name then.
Yeah,
It's
when it sort of got
changed.
split and changed.
Yeah, that was always Seifert Road
Yeah.
until they changed the name of it.
Maybe when the Queen Elizabeth cut through, would that have been about the time they started changing?
No, it was after that. It was just before the Regent took over. Tommy Somerville was on the council, and Horace Morningstar and Harold Willick was a Reeve, and they were changing names all over the place. So they wanted a Somerville Road because he was on the council. So it was going to make Sodom Road Somerville Road.
Yeah.
And there was too much objection. Nobody would go for it.
Well, maybe Dad can tell you the road signs. Would you have the history of those road signs?
No, we have a couple of road signs given to us. The old road signs that were made for.
You know, you made them, didn't you, Dad? Didn't you
Yeah,
make them
and
up
you-
and then I painted
You
them?
painted them and painted them.
When did you do that? I didn't know that
Well,
this was.
it was when the firemen started. It must have been
Oh, 50 or 51 then. 51
I
or
think.
50?
It was 1949 when we started.
Oh, sure, because that's why they
And,
needed road signs.
1950 it must have been. And I got the lumber and cut them and made the. I guess we had. Who was it? Horace Morningstar furnished the poles. It was all volunteer work. And then they were going to change. According to the firemen, had to know what the name of the road, so they were changing names. So then they were still changing names. So then they wanted a Somerville Road. So instead of where the Somervilles lived, having that road, why they went and changed it. They wanted the Sodom Road, and there was another one they were going to make Somerville Road. Then they finally decided on this one. This road running right along here. That is Somerville Road.
Yeah.
So it's Somerville Road now.
I remember that time.
Yeah. So we put up a lot of the signs. We never got it all finished before the region, I think, took over. So then everything was changed. Oh, it all had to be more elaborate and all this and that. So we never got our volunteer job finished altogether. I still got a couple of them signs around here yet too, that we never got put up then. Some of them were painted too. Yeah, then the region took over and they done things altogether different. I don't think it's as good as now. Not as understandable. And the same way with the fire calls. That was really a good understandable way with the fire calls. And now it goes into headquarters, and then who knows? Never heard anything where there's a fire since. I'm still a fireman.
Well, when the Willoughby firemen first started, the volunteer fire department, you were one of the charter members?
Yeah.
And how did that get organized?
Well, we organized it out of the Willoughby Hall, and Jim, my brother Jim, was the first president, really.
He didn't really join, but he didn't join the fire department, but he was the president of the group to form it, sort of.
He organized it until we had our own, when we had our own fire hall. And up until that time, while he was always at the meetings, and Charlie Rook he was appointed the first fire chief, and I was director I was the building superintendent or whatever.
We have a list of the charter members.
Bevins was treasurer, and no, he wasn't the treasurer. He was
secretary.
Secretary. He might have been a secretary too, or treasurer at first. And Fred Hexamer was on the committee. He was we were like equal. And John Diedenbeck. And we were the ones that we had to be the owners of it. Because there was no such thing as a municipality owning it at that time. We had to stand good for it. So we were our names is in there as the owners, and then we were responsible for everything that was being done there. And then we didn't have enough money sometimes, so we set up bonds, and I paid in a few $100s myself. You pay in a little bit to make enough money to do the next project until we got the hall built and all that. And a lot of it was donated. And Earl Diedenbeck was in business up in Ridgeway, and he helped us an awful lot. And he was sort of a contractor anyway. And the windows, for instance, they were good steel windows, steel frames. He donated them, and I went and got them with a trailer. They didn't cost us anything. So then we built them in there ourselves. They're still in there. The steel windows that open up and everything.
Yes.
And an awful lot of things that was donated. And then whenever we'd have we'd have a drive for donate for cement blocks. And I think they were only 20 cents a piece then, I think. So we got quite a few donations for cement blocks. And then we done all the cement work ourselves and all the construction. Carrier Construction, they gave us the forms for building the form for the foundation. Wooden forms, 3 foot high. Carryout from Niagara Falls. So they didn't charge us anything for them. Then the cement mixer was a big mixer that you put all the grit and the cement in, and then it hoisted up in the mixer. It hold about 3 wheelbarrows full. So then we had lots of volunteer help, so we could run it in pretty good that way. And we borrowed that from Mr. Fredericks out at the river. The one I had the motel out there, and it'd be out the Diedenbeck Road. I used to go out the Diedenbeck Road to get it with a tractor, and we'd have to take it back after. So we borrowed it 3 different times that I know of, and I always had to do all the runaround and making the plans for it. Well, then the engine and one of the valves busted, and we couldn't use the engine. So that's when we was making the floor, I guess. So we had to keep going. We couldn't get parts for it, so Ivan Hunt got his tractor and put a belt on the wheel of the engine, and it was just to show that engine still run it, but the tractor had to run the.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So that's how we managed to get it done. So everybody was anxious to keep things going. So we built that whole thing, volunteer, every bit of it, except the roof. We got Walker Brothers from Welland put the roof on it, built up roof, flat roof. And it lasted until just last year. It lasted pretty well, that roof.
That's good.
From 1950. I guess it's 50. Yeah, 50 when they put that roof on. Imagine that.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So they had to put a new roof on last year. And
How did you get your first fire truck?
1951. The fire hall was just finished with a gravel floor in it, and we just I think we put the doors, wasn't there? Temporary doors we put on it, and then we ordered the fire truck that year. But we had another fire truck before that. It was a high pressure weed sprayer, and it had a small tank. I forget. I guess it held 500 gallons. I can't just remember for sure. Anyway, we fixed that up, and I done the welding and put railings on it, and we used it quite a few times. Louis Willoughby never joined the fire department, but he was always there, and a couple others that hadn't belonged yet. Bert Ort was another one. He hadn't joined up, and he never did join up, but he helped with quite a few of the fires. And I think Benny Trennell, he took care of it, he drove it, and we had several fires out at the river. Had some grass fires. It was good for that too, because it had a high pressure nozzle on it. And I forget who the fellow was that helped us. He helped us fix up that pump and make it so it'd be more like a fire truck. Before it was just a weed sprayer. And then we helped to change over the nozzles and stuff to our equipment. So then they still, Township owned that. We never owned that. high pressure sprayer. So they kept it, and when we got the fire truck, why, we still kept it in the garage over at the Township Hall. Oh yeah, they built a piece. The Township built a piece. They had a little garage here. It was just for the Township truck. So they built another piece on big enough to put that sprayer in there. I don't know whatever happened to it. I guess I haven't been very active lately, but I guess the Township got rid of it since then. But it wasn't long before we had a tanker of our own that I built up too. We bought it from Yummy Stevens. It was a big steel truck. Good God, it was 22 feet long and it had a corrugated deck on it. And they used to haul steel from Hamilton back and forth to Hamilton.
Oh.
And it was a big white truck. And we bought that for, I think it's $250. But it had to be changed and the tank put on it and the whole deck. I took all the deck off and I laid it all out for. We got a tank and put on it, and then the deck and the step on the side and the fenders was all made out of the deck that had been on that truck, all floor plate. And the steel plant was still running in fabrication plant at over at the canal, over at
Welland?
Huh?
Welland?
Not Welland, Port Robinson. And I took that stuff, I laid it all out here, and I cut it all that had to be cut, but all the bends, the breaks, had to be made. I laid that all out. That is my business then at the plant, you know, I could do those things. But I had to cart that over there with a trailer, my car and the trailer. I had an awful load. And then they broke it up over there. And then I had to bring it back and install it on that truck. The tank was on, but all the side had to be like a step, and then a drop from there again. It was quite